again. My name is Richelle Williams. I'm the Aquatics and Youth Programs Coordinator at Western Washington University. Thank you all so much for coming back or tuning in. We're so happy to see you. Just a disclaimer, just like with the other ones, everyone is at very different spaces with how your universities or places of employment are handling the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know a lot of places are starting to reopen or look at reopening, so we're all at very different spaces. And when we have these follow-up conversations after our guest speaker speaks and we open up the floor, let's try to be as helpful as we can be, and just keep in mind that some places are in very different spaces as far as how they're reacting and coping to what's going on right now. So I'm super excited. We've got Marcos from PSU that's here, that's going to be helping facilitate a conversation with Ferris from My Swim Pro. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it on over to Marcos. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marcos. I work at Portland State University as the Aquatics Coordinator. And like many of you, I've been doing a lot of research on looking for alternative programming for our swimmers, especially dryland workouts at the moment. And during my research, I was on YouTube and I was looking for different ideas, and I came across this YouTube channel called My Swim Pro that Ferris Ksebati here is the CEO of. And I thought it would be great to invite him onto one of our talks, just so he could share what My Swim Pro is, give us some ideas, maybe some inspiration, and some insight on how they've handled this pandemic, because they do a lot of programming for swimmers, and I'm sure it's been a shift in their world as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Ferris if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about My Swim Pro a little bit, and yeah, get to know everybody.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and good to connect virtually with a lot of industry professionals. This is really fun. So a little bit of background about My Swim Pro. We're a technology and media company, and we create apps that coach people in swimming and triathlon. Our main app is called My Swim Pro. And like was just mentioned, we have the YouTube channel. So we produce a lot of content for helping swimmers improve their performance and health, whether that's, you know, a master swimmer who swims 3 times per week, or even an age group swimmer that's on a club team already and they're looking for additional resources and motivation. We typically, like if we rewind a couple of months, what we were doing before all of this, we were producing a Whiteboard Wednesday. So it's like a session where I'm standing in front of a whiteboard and I explain some technical swimming concept. We do like a workout of the week. So we have like a structured workout and we walk through, you know, maybe there's a specific drill on how you can improve your freestyle or underwater dolphin kick or something. And that's a workout of the week. And then we do interviews with a lot of people in the industry, whether it's, you know, Olympic swimmers or coaches, stuff like that. And then any other fun type of content, we produce a lot of that. So that's on the content side. And we share that through all of our social media channels. And we still do that, but now we've added the dryland component, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then we have the applications. So these are on iPhone, Android, and they have personalized training programs. And there's a community element to that as well. So up until 8 weeks ago, really focused on swimming, and we have a triathlon app separate from that. But most of our focus was on the swimming market and helping, you know, adult fitness swimmers. And then when we started to see things getting shut down, it was really interesting. So I was out of the country in February, and the country I was in was like shutting down while I was there. So I was like, I kind of saw this coming, and then it sort of all happened really fast, as all of you guys have seen. So kind of feeling that something was going to come, we had like a team meeting, and we talked about like, what if everything shuts down and, you know, no one can swim anymore, which isn't really something that we considered at the time. Like it's not, but here we are. So at that point we were like, okay, so how do we continue to create value for people who already know about us and follow us? So luckily, you know, over the last 5 years, we've built like a brand. So people are familiar with us, whether they use our app or follow us on social media. So how do we make sure we continue to connect with those people? So before touching our mobile application or anything like that, we're like, let's just hold like a live workout. That was the first thing we did. Let's host a live workout. People are kind of stuck at home already. This was like pre-crazy lockdown. So this was, okay, let's just run a workout. We'll broadcast it on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram simultaneously. And it'll just be me running the workout, and it'll be swimming specific, because right now the biggest challenge that, you know, and we still do this, we do this several times per week, we do live workouts, but the problem is and we do it for free, anyone can join, but there's like so much of this kind of stuff out there. So there's like a lot of people running live workouts. You don't have to be a swimming related thing. There's a lot of programming out there. So how do we make sure it's swimming specific, so that way people who already follow us, it is differentiated and they feel that connection, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to sustain for whatever time frame this is, whether it's 3 months or 18 months, whatever. So that way, when we kind of get back to the new normal, people didn't forget about us and they can get back to more normal programming. So we're trying to build that connection. And the only way you can do that is by being very relevant to what people actually need in the moment. So the way we run a live workout now is probably not how it would have been done 4 months ago, and probably not what it's going to look like in 2 years. So we're really trying to be aware of what people need now, and being as swimming specific and relevant to what our existing content and relationship that we have with our community already is. So I know it's a really diverse crowd that we have right here on the virtual, but if you think about it from your guys' like perspective, like what is your association with your clientele, whoever that may be, the people who use the facility, the coaches, the whatever it is based on your situation, and then thinking about it from the perspective of how do we sustain that type, like what are the unique things that we were doing that differentiate us from the world, basically, that are like, that we can tie into, like, this is unique to our program, our facility. And then how can you incorporate that if you're going to do some kind of a live workout or newsletter, or if you're engaging your coaches or however you're set up. So that's like number one, is like think about how can you be relevant now, specific to what you actually do, which is differentiated. And I'll actually back up a little bit. The biggest thing I tried to communicate to our team was, like, when this was all happening, is to make sure that we adjust our mindset appropriately. So we're not thinking in the past, we're thinking in the present moment. Because, and looking at everyone on the call right now, most people are pretty young. So this is actually a good, I don't know, I'm gonna scroll right here to see who we're looking at. There's a lot of people with your video off. I can't see who you guys are. Oh, well. So like, there's an advantage of not having done this for 30 years. So if you've only been doing this like for 5 or 10 years, you've built a certain experience set that you know how to run your facility, or like, you know what you're doing for a certain amount of time. The crazy thing about all this is a lot of that experience almost gets thrown out the window. So you got to think about it like you're starting from scratch. So if you were to be hired right now for your current position, how would you try and do your job right now without knowing what you already know? So you got to think about it from a fresh perspective. And it's like, okay, so I come into this situation, I'm trying to sustain for this period of time, or I'm trying to communicate that unique value proposition. What are my challenges? What are my opportunities to be able to do that? And then take your experience over the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, however long you've been doing this, and incorporate and sprinkle in that knowledge that you have. But I think it's more important to actually almost think about everything from a fresh mindset, as if you're literally being hired right now. And that way it'll prevent you from thinking, well, we used to do this, so now let's just do this, because then you're only going to get an incremental improvement or change in the way that you're doing stuff. So if you were used to doing something and you kind of lean on your prior experience and the way you used to do things, then you're only going to be able to shift your perspective on how you do stuff now and moving forward by maybe 10 or 20%. But if you completely, like, you just started brand new and like you have to take it from that perspective, you're going to be able to improve the potentially offering or the ideas that you have by an order of magnitude. So you're going to be able to completely, like, well, we never did this, but it doesn't matter because that doesn't exist. The way we used to do things, it's not really relevant right now. So I would really encourage everyone to kind of think about, like, if you were just hired right now, how would you tackle the challenges that you have? And you'd probably do it differently than leaning on your experience of 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So that's something that I really encourage our team to think about. Every week we do an all team meeting. And so I had a slide where I had March 2020 does not equal April 2020. And this was in like the middle of March. And so we were planning, like, what are we going to do in April? And the idea was everything we've done before is just kind of park it somewhere. And as if we're starting new, how would we do this? So we're completely, like how we're doing it at My Swim Pro, we're completely refactoring the app. We've already incorporated dryland training programs in the app. Next week, we're launching the biggest update in the company's history. It's completely changing everything, our subscription model, our content structure, the way, I mean, it's still an app and it's still trying to help swimmers improve their performance and health, but we're taking a very, very different approach. And we produced a lot of new content. We did everything really fast. And I don't think we would have been able to do that if we were stuck in the mindset of like, let's just kind of improve things a little bit given the new situation. And I've spoken with a lot of coaches in March, especially like when all this stuff was happening. And I know a lot of swimmers like had their state championships and they were all like upset and the coaches didn't really know what to do. And I was talking to one coach in particular, I won't forget this. He was telling me like, yeah, you know, I might go on like, since everything's shut down, we're probably going to be off for like a week or something. And I might take my family on like a camping trip and then we'll kind of come back to this. And I was like, I don't think you should do that. Like that would not, like this isn't going to last a week. If you think about it from the mindset of, and everyone knows now that's not how it ended up working. So from the very beginning, I think we're still actually kind of in the beginning of this, because even if you get back to, you know, your pool opens up and kind of, it seems normal for, you know, for a good chunk of people on the call, the reality is it's not going to be the same thing, because there's a lot of budget scenarios that do not play out like they did 3 months ago or 2 months ago. There's a lot of people's willingness to do things is a lot different. I'll give you an example. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I did a call with one of our ambassadors. We have 50 all over the world, and she's like a high level swimmer, and she's on the master side. She's like 32, healthy, lives with her husband who's also healthy. And she said she's not going to go to any aquatic facility until next year. And so this is someone who's like a high level athlete, trains every single day, but the consumer behavior is going to be different. So again, if you were to approach everything that's happening now from the perspective of let's just kind of incorporate like 10% change, like let's kind of just update based on the times and like kind of stay relevant, it would be really hard to satisfy someone like her, because she's not coming to the facility. She's already decided like it's not going to happen. So if you were to start your job today and you were to hear that, you would respond differently than, well, I guess we lost her. Well, maybe you didn't lose her. Maybe there's a way you can stay engaged. Maybe there's a way you can actually change her mind to come back if something actually is compelling enough. So that's my my biggest feedback to everyone is kind of, as if you were to be hired today, how would you tackle all the challenges that you have? And then sprinkle in the experience that you have for the last, 3 months, year, 10 years, 20 years, however long you've been in the industry. So I'd like to open it up to Q&A if or whatever the next step in the program is, so I can be more useful and not ramble.
So one of the things I wanted to touch on was a lot of us run aquatic facilities and different programming, and with all of that being taken away at the moment, I've found a lot of value in some of the videos y'all have produced. For example, how swimmers can work out without a pool, how swimmers can work out at home, how to endure the pandemic as a swim coach during this time. What are some other resources or videos that you've produced that you could think that would be beneficial to us at this moment? Because I think y'all are doing a lot of what we want to do at our own facilities, create this type of content, this type of programming. How can we use what you already have to help us moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of content that we've produced, so I mentioned that Whiteboard Wednesday series. So we have a lot of videos on how you can incorporate specific pieces of equipment or no equipment, like great dryland training exercises for swimmers, core specific exercises, Swiss ball, medicine ball, TRX suspension cables. Each of these is its own video, and it has 10 different exercises listed. So there's a couple of things here. So the business savvy side of me is like, oh, you should just send our videos to all of your people and that'll help us grow our distribution. That's great. So, I mean, sure, you can send all of our stuff. To make it more relevant though, for each of you guys individually, sort of what I was saying is how do you find what you guys are uniquely offering? So rather than just sending your audience to someone else, you can do that. But if you can tie in and incorporate what someone else, whether it's a My Swim Pro or anyone else, what they've done, and then somehow tie it back so it's more relevant and focused for your specific group of people. And it really depends on who your people are. That could be very diverse. So for example, let's say, a video that's coming out today is it's called the 10 best Swiss ball exercises for swimmers. So that's coming out on our channels today. So you take that and here are these 10 exercises. I have no problem if you guys just repurpose that and put it in your own newsletter or whatever and be like, these are the 10 best exercises. Like, you know, don't directly copy our stuff, but, you know, you can say, you know, here's a listicle. And like, not only that, but maybe there's some tie-in to your facility or something that you can make it more relevant. Maybe you have a video of someone doing anything related at your facility or whatever, just to make it more connected. So you're not just sending your audience to someone else, because then you lose that connection. If you're just sending someone, like, they can just Google search it themselves. Like, so you want to be able to provide unique value. So rather than, oh, like, check out this great resource, My Swim Pro, like, go to them. You don't want to 100%, and that hurts us. Like, I mean, I want people coming to our platform. At the same time, for you guys to have the most value, you need to make sure that you guys are uniquely providing something other than just sending to someone else. So, you know, we have a lot of great content on My Swim Pro, and, you know, the email and the blog, and we're pumping out a lot of content. But how can you take that as like a reference and then tie in your own unique flavor to it? And again, I don't really know what that is. It really depends on what you guys, who your community is, your facility, what you're doing. So figure out a way to like tie it in and make it more relevant and specific. And this is the fun part. If you could, the easiest way to do this, like, well, we don't have any videos of people doing Swiss balls. Like, the ones you guys have are really good. So just, that's fine. But what you can do is you can put your own face or your coaches or other people on your team in front of the camera, or put your own voice to it. And it might be intimidating. Some people are not camera friendly, they're camera shy rather. So that's fine. But like, you kind of, in this situation, again, like if you were hired today, you need to step out of your comfort zone in a different way. So it does a lot when you put your own voice into the content or a message. Or let's say you're used to doing like an email once a week or something. Do a video update once a week, and it might not be from you, it might be from someone else. But then, and even if no one knows who you are, it's actually fine, because if you do it consistently, say a weekly video update, and you do that for the next 6 weeks, people are going to know who you are after a certain point. Like, you're going to build loyalty in a different way with a very specific group of people. Now, you might end up only getting like 12 people that watch these, but that's not really the point. The point is to build a really strong relationship and trust with a small group of people, because if you can maintain and sustain that level of trust and that level of connection over a period of time, then that will grow organically and that will compound over time. So that way, in 18 months or 12 months or 6 months, when things are different than they are now, you've already built a relationship. And as you're pivoting your facilities and what you guys offer, it's coming from a consistent voice. And so I would encourage everyone to explore different ways to communicate that beyond just in email. Because like everyone's gotten so many emails about, like, especially a month and a half ago, like the CEO of every company was sending an email saying, in light of these unprecedented times, your health comes first. And like, you guys all probably sent an email similar to that. Like, I did too. So because everyone sent out the same messaging, now's the time. Okay, we've already sent those. So let's try and be very, very personal and put a specific voice behind it. And it doesn't have to be video. It doesn't have to be, maybe there's a lot of creative ways that you can do it. But again, maybe think about it from the perspective of, you just got hired today. You know that you go to Google and you see My Swim Pro, we're putting out a lot of great content. How do I make sure that we are relevant and associated with that content at this moment and moving forward, and do it consistently with a voice? Maybe it's an image, maybe it's a video, and do that over and over and over.
Great, thank you. So a lot of your content I've seen has been really motivational for a lot of swimmers, especially right now when even myself as a swimmer, I was like, well, our pool's gone. Like, what am I supposed to do? How have you been able to use that to keep or use that swimmer's passion to keep swimmers motivated remotely?
Yeah, this is a interesting topic, because some people have gotten really down at this moment, and that, you know, like, oh, my meets got canceled and things like that. And it's tough. I mean, I'm not going to ignore the fact that it's not an ideal situation, but on the flip side, there is a silver lining, and that is an opportunity to improve upon yourself in other ways. And that's kind of what we try and echo, is that, like, yeah, you can't swim, or you can't, you know, your meets got canceled and all that, but this is an opportunity to focus on areas that you're not strong at. So that could be strength, flexibility, goal setting. There's a lot of, we have some videos on that. And then we've been able to interview a lot of interesting people. Like I interviewed Jason Lezak and some other like Olympic swimmers. And, you know, the question is like, you know, you've been to a bunch of Olympics and you know, it got canceled, like, or postponed. Like, what is your advice? And so those are some cool videos that are relevant to share. You know, here's how someone is coping with this, who is a thought figure and inspirational leader. We also hosted, this was fun, we hosted the World Swim Gala about a week and a half ago. So we had Rowdy Gaines, you know, voice of American Swimming, and Caitlin Sandino were the two keynote speakers. That video is still available on YouTube, so you guys can check it out, the full recording, the World Swim Gala. And basically both of them, their keynote was talking about, you know, overcoming adversity. And Rowdy specifically, he talked about in the 1980 Olympics that was boycotted. I mean, he was, I think, favored to win like 4 events or something. And he had like 11, he broke 11 world records leading into that. And then he didn't go to the Olympics. And he talked about that. So I think there's, and My Swim Pro, like, we're just like one sliver of the content that's out there on this topic. Like, there's so many video interviews, like so many Olympians, so many not Olympians, like every aspect. So there's a lot of content that you could push out. Like, here's an interview that was, and again, I think it should be specific. So rather than like, here's an interview with Rowdy Gaines, it's, you know, 7 people asked about this specific question, and we found this interview, and, you know, Caitlin Sandino spoke about this specifically at 12 minutes and 35 seconds. Please watch it. Then you become way more like focused, relevant, and the people that you're communicating with are going to be way more aware and receptive, and you're going to build that trust rather than just like, check out this cool video by Jason Lezak. He's so cool. Remember how fast he was? So I think if you can really tie it in and make it personalized, then you're going to see a lot more trust and build that over time.
Great, thank you. So a lot of us are looking to create some type of remote workouts. Do you have any advice for creating dry land workouts for people that may not have any equipment with them, or teaching swimming skills remotely?
Yeah, well, the swimming skills remotely is a tough one. We are trying to learn how to do that ourselves. But from the dry land perspective, so there's a lot of exercises you could do. You know, there's, unlike swimming, swimming's really unique where you have like different strokes, you have different drills that you can do. It's a plethora. I'd say with out of the water, there's so many more things you can do, whether it's with your body, with machines, with equipment, different flexibility levels. So I would tie it all back to how does, if it's swimming, how does it relate to swimming, and how does it make you a better swimmer? Otherwise, because there's so much noise out there, there's so many different workout options, like push-ups. Okay, well, maybe explain why I'm doing a push-up, why I'm doing a plank or a Superman extension. So I would tie it back to the value prop of, one, why does this help swimming in the first place? Like, why should you stay active? How is this going to improve? And, you know, we always talk about for why you would do out of water training for swimming, it's going to improve your performance. So you're going to improve your strength, muscle engagement. It's going to reduce your chances for injury. It can improve your flexibility. So you start out with those as like your key things. So always keep that in mind when it comes to communicating and building a program. And then when you dive in more specifically, well, okay, we're talking about improving your performance. What does that actually mean? Well, when you hold a plank, for example, you're going to improve your core stability, and core stability is really important for your streamline, which, you know, holding a good streamline, reducing drag, which is the fundamental body position of swimming. So, you know, whether it's writing out some exercises and then making sure each of those tie to a specific thing that'll help you in swimming. So like the example I gave, you know, you got a plank, it's going to improve your core strength, which is going to improve your streamline, and that's going to make you better at swimming. Or maybe you're doing a Superman extension, you know, your Superman extensions on your stomach, you know, you're doing the Superman, right? Or maybe you're doing alternating Superman extensions. So that's the exercise. And the thing that's going to help you with is, yes, core stability, but increasing your strength all the way from your fingertips down through your lower back, glutes, and hamstrings. As a result of improving that strength, it's going to make your underwater dolphin kick better, and your freestyle kick's going to be better, just as an example. So always, if you're building a program, rather than just like, what's a fun exercise to do, You know, if it's like, if you're building a circuit, just an example, okay, we're going to do 5 rounds of 3 different exercises, 1 upper body, 1 lower body, 1 core. And it's going to be, so upper body would be push-ups, lower body would be squats, core would be plank, just as an example. So then you can tie, okay, that's like the structure. And then we're going to have each of those tie to what that's going to relate to in swimming. And it could not, like, you know, there's only so much you can relate to swimming, but at the same time, if you're not finding anything and it's a total body workout, like a burpee or something, total body, well, if you're doing a circuit, you're trying to improve endurance, because that's the one thing that you get from swimming that it's really difficult to replicate out of the water, because your body is in the water. It's a medium that's 800 times more dense than air. So because of that, you get a really good aerobic workout when you go swimming. Out of the water, it's hard to replicate. That's actually probably one of the most common questions that I see with my swim pro, is that people are like, how do I stay aerobically fit? Because if I just do a bunch of push-ups and squats and stuff, it's really hard to do that. So the way you do that is by, you know, circuit training and making sure you don't take too much break between the exercises. And that's another element that you need to communicate. If you're building a program, it's like, we're going to do these exercises and they're specific to this thing in swimming, but also it's an aerobic activity because you're only going to take 10 seconds rest between them. And we're going to go through it 5 rounds. So your heart rate's going to be elevated for 15 minutes. And because of that, that's the equivalent of swimming like 3 500s or 1,000 or something. And so you don't have to tie it directly one-on-one to swimming, but a common question that I see all the time is, okay, I'm going to do all this strength training, but I want to make sure I'm aerobically fit and I can't run, because we get that a lot. Like a lot of people have lower body issues, like low impact stuff. We have a whiteboard Wednesday about like low impact exercises and stuff, but how do I stay aerobically fit when I can't run, when I can't do half the exercises you're telling me about? So just being aware of that and being able to communicate the value add of, here's a swimming specific strength exercise or circuit, and it's an aerobic activity because you're going to do it all one after another with minimal break. And you're going to do that every other day. And on the days that you're not doing that, you're going to do this instead. And that way you're active 6 days a week and you can deliver a lot of value. I think tying back, just one more point on this, tying back to what I was thinking with that coach that I mentioned 6 weeks ago, where he was kind of taking the, I'm just going to sit back and see what happens approach. That's not a good long-term solution, because you're just going to drift. You're going to become irrelevant very, very quickly. So rather than send people to other workouts, you know, you were hired right now. Again, you were hired right now. What are you going to do? You're not going to send someone else. Then what's your job? You're not going to send people to someone else. So, you know, take what you can, use the resources around you, tie them in, but like do something that is kind of your own personal flavor on everything that you can pull into it. And that's what I encourage everyone.
Great. Well, those are the questions I have. Thank you for joining us. I really just wanted to expose everybody to some different type of programming and resources and build a connection with you. If anybody has any questions, right now would be a great time to ask them. Richelle, if you want to take it over from here. If anybody has anything else to add before we move on to our next topic.
Yeah, we're going to take just the next couple of minutes for any questions that anyone has, and then we're going to be moving on to people who are potentially reopening. So thanks. Does anybody have any questions? No, Faraz, would you be able to put your email in the chat for us? And then if you're okay with that, and then if we have any questions, maybe we could reach out to you individually.
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on. I've been frantically taking notes, and I really appreciate all of your input. Yeah, you've done a great job, and thank you so much.
Oh yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good luck, everyone.
Yeah.
Stay
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so I think I've had a couple people message me, and I've also gotten quite a few emails in the last week or so about people who are potentially reopening in either very, very soon or like within the next couple of weeks. So I was wondering if anybody is being pushed to reopen their pools shortly, and if you are, if you've come up with any sort of plan or if people have been pushed to come up with plans for reopening swim lessons or swim teams or anything like that. I had someone from Florida reach out to me a couple days ago with the situation that she's probably going to be reopening swim lessons this summer. And so she was asking for suggestions as far as how to do that safely. Does anybody have any feedback, or is anybody in that situation?
Hey, so I'm Allison. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, but we're not doing swim lessons, but they have eased some of this stuff. Apparently, May 15th, so my facility has been pushing me to figure out a way to open our indoor and outdoor pool, and what they would like me to do is create time slots for people to sign up, and that those would be 1 or 2 hour increments. And then our indoor pool is only 6 lanes, so it would only be 6 people for that hour or 2 hour time slot. And then our outdoor pool, they would like me to figure out how many families can fit in our outdoor pool with still doing the social distancing. So that would be, cutting off the pool with our lane lines or something like that in different sections, and still only limiting those families to 1 or 2 hour increments, and then only having a family time from like 8 to 1, and then lap swimming or people that are like individuals that can come and sign up for the later half of the day that we're open. So that's kind of what they're trying to push us to do.
What type of sign-up system will y'all be using for that?
We right now use it's called MindBody, and I'm not very familiar with it as I just started at my job, but they said that the way MindBody works is that you can sign up for different classes, which in that case would be different lane lines, I guess, because what we have right now, the other application that we use is Daxco, and it just doesn't work well in terms of trying to sign up, because they don't want people to sign up for the whole week at the same time, whereas MindBody eliminates someone, for instance, signing up for the same lane Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock.
Awesome. And then how are you beginning to determine the areas for the amount of people per that lap pool that you're talking about trying to section off?
Yeah. So our outdoor pool, 1/2 of it is just lap lanes, and then 1/2 of it is just a open area. It's still equivalent to 6 lanes. So we haven't figured out how big each section for a family would be yet. But we're probably not going to make it any bigger than between 7 to 10 families total in that broken up section, so that they can still be far apart from each other, as I don't see 7 families signing up in every single 2 hour increment anyways.
Great, thanks, Allison.
Yeah.
I have Autumn says that they're offering private swim lessons for learn to swim levels 3 and up.
That was just something that they said on our Red Cross call the other day. So that's something we may look into, just because, by that time they are independent swimmers.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to be completely touched, but not 100% sold on that, but it is an opportunity. And I think we definitely couldn't do adult beginner. So really sticking to more advanced children and adults.
Great. Thank you. And then Natalie said ECU is talking about the possibility of having early morning hours for seniors only to safely swim. That's
so
interesting.
ECU has a large elderly crowd. They come throughout the day, but I would say mostly in the morning. So we were thinking of either having a period in the middle of the day where most of them come, and that's where they can come work out safely. We'll sanitize everything before they get there, after they leave, or just to do a morning crowd for them. So we haven't really decided. We're kind of in the midst of talking about opening back up, but I have been attending a lot of webinars with doctors in North Carolina about what they're doing practice-wise. And a lot of them are saying we should have like almost like levels of plans, because we can't live like this forever. So when the curve is flattened, things will start to, you know, let a little bit loose, and then the curve's going to go back up. So then we're going to have to tighten again. So it might be good to have like level 1 be like, okay, everything's open, everyone can interact with each other. A level 2, we're limiting to X amount of people in the building. Please use every other machine. Level 3, just since we don't really know what COVID's going to be like, and there's not going to really be a normal that we're used to until a vaccine comes out, which probably will happen at the soonest, like fall of 2021.
Great, thank you. That's a great idea that I haven't actually thought about, to have those contingency plans for phases of like participants and what that looks like, especially for a pool.
Yeah, they basically said it was gonna be like a little like dial tune, like everything's gonna tune up and be a little tight, and then everything's gonna tune back down to be like a little less strict.
Awesome, thank you. And I have also, yeah, and so based off of what Joshua said, the Red Cross is not recommending teaching lessons while social distancing is in place. And so Christine, to talk about lifeguarding and the accommodations made for lifeguarding during social distancing. I know last time and the time before, we've talked a couple of times like pretty passionately about how a lot of us would try to push to not be open while social distancing still remains, because at that point you are putting your lifeguards in harm's way, essentially, because we just don't know. But also I want to recognize that a lot of people don't have that option, especially if your municipality or your employer is telling you have to open. So I know some folks were talking about cleaning tubes, so everybody having their own individual guard tube and cleaning the tube every time it's used, making sure everyone has their own face mask. When we shut down, we were wiping down our chairs before we got in and out of them. So anything that anyone touched, we were sanitizing before and after. But also, I don't know how rescues can really be modified in order to, because you want to learn to the objective and teach to the standard, or vice versa. So you want to be able to safely move people out of the water and do everything to the standard. Does anybody have any thoughts about how you would how rescues might look for you if you do have to open while social distancing is still in place, or what you will be doing with your lifeguards during that time?
Hi, Lizzie. At FSU, we had a call with some other just more aquatic municipalities in Parks and Rec the other day, and some of them are opening, and what they said that they're doing consistently is like they're having check-ins with their staff, and if at any point the staff feels uncomfortable with doing anything, that they don't work anymore. So they leave it to the staff. They have participants sign particular waivers when they come in. But other than that, the main thing that they talked about in places that are opening is that they let the staff decide, like if at any point they don't feel comfortable doing it, they don't guard anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely, like, we obviously can't coerce our staff into working for us. So that's a good call. I know I've had, Erin put something in about StarGuard, and I hopped on a call from Lifeguard Authority, which is a Facebook group, and one of the medical professionals from StarGuard gave a really great presentation about opening, and I think it was last Friday. Time is all melded together, so I can't remember exactly when it is, but I'm pretty sure it was last Friday, and it was a really, really good medical look at how we're opening and how they're potentially advising people to open and all of that sort of stuff. So I would definitely suggest looking at that, but they did say with the guidelines that they're not, if there are social distancing guidelines and you can remain closed, that they would recommend that, but also the water is considered to be a disinfectant.
Yeah, I just posted that video from Justin in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that was such a great video. And also, I have been watching some videos from the National Parks and Recreation Association for their aquatics. It's interesting to see what Parks and Rec are doing and compared to aquatics or higher ed, because I think we're in an interesting situation where we're dictated by what our university is doing versus what our state is telling us to do. Is anybody else going to or starting to create some sort of plan for when you're reopening, if you have to reopen this summer?
Yeah, we got some plans going on. So currently what we're doing is trying to figure out, there's a help up here in Maryland, our local health departments are meeting with the state as well as following CDC guidelines on phases to open and doing permits. If we do open, there's going to be limited, it's going to be limited on how many people are going to be able to come in. So there's still going to be social distancing in order. Trying to figure out how we can do that is coming up with the challenges. Like if we're able to open Memorial Day weekend coming in for the season, how do the water aerobics classes work? Do we have to limit those sizes? As for the training for lifeguards, as you guys know, there's the 120-day extension for that, or 120-day extension for that. And as for training purposes, we're doing a lot of blended learning, getting all the online learnings, doing some Zoom meetings to do all the lectures and interacting with the students before coming in. And one of the things talking with our rep is being able to do distance learning when we're able to reopen for CPR and first aid. So some of the things we do is doing multiple persons, CPR and rescuing. Everybody would have their own mannequin, but would be doing multiple rescue or CPR. So, you know, person A has a mannequin, but they're only doing the breast. Person B has a mannequin, but they're only doing the compressions. And then person C has the AED and their own mannequin, and they're doing that at a distance, but treating it as if they're the same victim. Still trying to figure out what we're going to do on the water portion to certify new individuals. That's kind of up in the air because, again, Red Cross meeting with our local reps, it was just if the health department allows us to open and permit for the Parks and Rec and in the private sector, it's if they do open and they put in those social guidelines, how are we able to do and certify new lifeguards coming in order to be open? Some of the other things they also put into play is having to, if we provide deck furniture, disinfecting each chair as individuals leave. How that poses challenges, again, we'll probably be working with a skeleton lifeguard crew and then having to go behind and consistently disinfect all the chairs as people are leaving. That stuff we're trying to figure out. And then the biggest thing, one of the things that we talked about is doing kind of like how ice rinks do skate sessions, is doing bracelets in different pool sessions in order to keep that social distancing in order and preventing overusage. So doing 2-hour blocks or 1-hour blocks with different colored wristbands during the day and rotating during breaks is one of the things that we're looking at doing, but hopefully we'll have some better answers and better leeway probably within the next, hopefully by the end of the week.
Great, thanks, Mike. And something that I think I mentioned and we had talked about a little bit at some point during these is that I think when we open, we'll look much like Trader Joe's, where we have somebody who, instead of wiping down carts, will be wiping down like everything people touch when they come in. And I know last time we had talked about what locker rooms are going to look like and how people are thinking about disinfecting locker rooms. But before we maybe look into that, I was sent a question that was interesting because I experienced this. Has anybody come up with a plan, or did anybody have to handle people who were tested positive for COVID-19 using their facility? And then how did you handle that? Or if you haven't had to handle that yet, have you come up with a plan for how you're going to handle it? So for me, 2 of my staff tested positive for COVID-19 3 days before we closed. And I had meetings with them prior, and this was before everything shut down. And I had gone to my parents' house, which is a few hours away. And then they called me on a Saturday and they were like, hey, and they're separate people, just want to let you know my roommates tested positive for COVID-19. I'm self-quarantining. So then I had to immediately call my director, and we took everybody in the building that was a down person. So anyone who was on break or just not actively doing anything. And we bleached everything we could find. And we bleached everything that could have potentially been touched. We had to email all of our staff and let everyone in our staff know that if they had come into contact, like in the pool. Luckily, it was swim instructors, so they had just come in and taught lessons and then left. But that was still the guard room, the locker rooms, all of the pool toys, a whole bunch of stuff, my office. So that was kind of how we had to handle that. And then obviously we had to call the health center and then call the CDC. So that was kind of how we handled it. And I think that is still a plan for us as we move forward. Has anybody else had to come up with a plan for that? Has anybody else had staff that has tested positive for COVID-19? No? Yeah, things got very real in Washington very quickly. So that was a whole hoot. So, and also just to reiterate to everybody, I know there's been some links that have been posted in the chat about the provisional certifications that are being pushed through by the American Red Cross. So please make sure you're in contact with your rep or you're checking their news section, because they have all of the information about the provisional certifications as well as the extensions for all of the certifications that are included in that. And those are things that you have to do yourself. So, put those course records in. Francis is asking, for those who are people going to, when they reopen, require masks or face coverings for your staff? Has anybody thought about that?
Hi guys. So here at University of Wyoming, we've recently been talking about procedures and stuff to think about when we do reopen, whenever that is. One of the things we were talking about is having masks and gloves for all staff. And I'm going to link in the chat here a resource from the CDC, which is how to construct your own masks at home, t-shirts, which since pretty much everyone we know has a bunch of spare t-shirts lying around, I think this could potentially be an effective way to provide masks for our staff and ourselves. So I just linked that in the chat if anyone wants to look. That is something we are looking at, because what I've seen online is other masks, such as like 3-ply masks, are relatively speaking expensive, like $1 per mask. And then obviously we can't get N95s because those are for doctors, the hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just trying to think of ways to meet CDC guidelines, and I think this resource could be helpful.
Well, and so Adam, something that that was brought up in the conversation in Lifeguard Authority was that lifeguards are healthcare professionals. Our CPR certification is CPR Pro, so CPR for the professional healthcare provider. And so we actually do qualify to purchase higher level masks because of our certifications. So like my university I just got an email saying that we are on the list that if we feel like we need to purchase those items, we are allowed to purchase those items because certain people on our university staff have those certifications. So just keep that in mind, that just because we aren't doctors, we do have that expectation that if we do have to do CPR or provide advanced medical care, that we do that. So yeah, I would look a little bit deeper into that, because we do, at least in Washington State, qualify for those. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Allison from Cal State Fullerton. Francis posted a link of where you can purchase reusable, washable masks from Original Waterman. And so part of our reopening plan, if we do reopen, is to mask and glove all of our lifeguards. And we're looking into purchasing those masks. They are about $13 or $14 a piece. I don't know if you buy them in bulk, if you get a discount. But that is our plan, to mask and glove each and give them each their own individual mask, since they can be washed in hot water and reused time and time again. So in the long run, if this goes for a while, having their own mask that they can wash or that we can wash for them might be pretty cost effective, since they are reusable. So that is part of our opening plan if we do reopen.
Great, thank you so much, Allison. And also, I saw that Joey posted something about upguards not wearing masks, but blocking off a 6-foot area around each stand. I think that's a really good call for folks that are going to be opening, or just in general in the future. Also, it'll prevent the patrons from bodyguarding. So they can't talk to the lifeguards if they can't get at them. Also, there are a few people that have put, Allison says that she's using whistles that you can squeeze, so you don't have to worry about whistling them. And then someone else, Francis, was saying that they have air horns. So if you are moving in a direction where you will have to wear a mask, or you're requiring your staff to wear a mask, it looks like you can get loud implements to take place of a standard whistle that we would use. Joshua was asking, if you're going to reopen and mask your guards, will you shorten their rotations on stand? Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Or has anyone thought about what their guard rotations are going to look like when you reopen? Jennifer said she's thinking about 15-minute rotations instead of normal 30-minute rotations. Bob is asking if anyone knows what swimming in one of the masks is like. I think it's going to be much like if you're wearing flip-flops, where once you jump in, you need to be able to rip the mask off your face. Or it'll just be like a soaked t-shirt, essentially, just sitting on your face. I can't imagine that the mask being wet will be easy to breathe through. I'm just gonna broadly guess that. Oh, so I think the ones made of swimsuit material, that those will probably be easier to breathe through. Jacob said it's like getting waterboarded. Yikes.
Question. As the American Red Cross pushes out the provincial certifications and virtual skill checks and things like that, has anyone started thinking about leveraging this new recommendation, this new social distancing practice, to update and get feedback mannequins if they don't already have them?
Yeah, if I have a budget, if I have a budget, I will be pushing for those big red mannequins, because I think that would be extremely useful, but also I have no budget right now.
Same, they froze all of our.
Yep.
If you have Laerdal mannequins made after, I believe, 1990, you can upgrade those mannequins to feedback mannequins that connect to your phone through an app. It's called Laerdal QCPR. We did that with like 10 of our mannequins, and the upgrades were only $80 each, as opposed to buying new mannequins that cost a lot more than that.
Great, thank you, Joey. And then I just saw in the chat, for those who don't foresee reopening in the near future, what steps are you taking to cut costs at your facilities? Is there anybody that would like to share? We drained our pool because we don't have to worry about the water table. So we were able to drain our pool and turn off our pumps. and that has been a huge utility. Our utility bill is very, very low now. Has anybody been doing anything else to try to mitigate your costs as you're moving forward? Reduced hours? Yep. Erin, what are your reduced hours going to look like?
We don't know yet. So Texas, our governor released his plan to reopen on Monday, and swimming pools aren't until phase 4. So we're still in the planning stage right now on what that would look like. And we're kind of all in the boat as everybody else. How do you save and have a end 6 feet? So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. We don't have any hours put out there at all yet.
Yeah, we also don't know when we're opening. We're going to the university is going to decide when we open most likely, but we're most likely going to have classes online through the summer. So I doubt we'll open over the summer. That's just my opinion, I guess. But to cut costs, we actually just stopped. We were paying student employees, those that were in town and able to help and give hours. We are no longer able to pay them after May 8th. So that's one way we're cutting costs in the quarantine side of things.
Great, thanks, Joey. Yeah, and I know for us, I had to come up with they were like, this is how these are 4 potential budgets that you have for wages. Come up with the hours you can be open for fall within these confines of the amount of money you may or may not have for your staff. So that has been an interesting exercise in fiscal responsibility.
And it's even more interesting because even though we're going to go to reduced hours, we're going to have more staff on during that time to do the cleaning, to do all of that. So it's like we're going to get cut even further down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because when you are open, your staff costs are going to be more than they typically would be because you have more staff on duty. This is going to be a fun time. And then Natalie posted something in the chat about there are policies in place that if someone works and then is sick, they're automatically ineligible for work for 2 weeks from their first day of symptoms. And so that way they can not infect others. And yeah, I think it's good. That's something great to think about as you're creating your reopening plans, is coming up with that sick leave policy where you're able to be like, if you are sick or if you have any symptoms or if you have these symptoms, then you will not be able to work for this amount of time. So that way you should be thinking about that now and be talking with legal and figuring out what you can and cannot do within the guidelines of trying to keep everybody safe and making sure your students don't get COVID-19.
And just kind of a FYI, my cousin got diagnosed with COVID-19, and then 21 days later she got retested and she was still testing positive. So this 2 weeks is an interesting thought process, but also remembering that it's sticking with people for longer than 2 weeks. She went from one test to the next, 21 days, and still tested positive.
Goodness. Yeah, that is definitely something good to keep in mind, because that is.
So the CDC actually has 2 different guidelines, which we were talking about in a webinar with some doctors yesterday. So there's the testing guideline, which if you test negative twice, you're good to go back to work, which is pretty concrete. And the other one is a no testing guideline. If you are asymptomatic for a certain number of days, and then again, then you can go back to work. And so that's a huge gray area. So the CDC is hopefully coming out with guidelines in the next week or 2 to update that no testing one, because it is very gray and because people are still testing positive many days after. So.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, everybody. So unfortunately, we are out of time for today. We will get another one of these on the schedule for hopefully fairly soon. because I think there's still a lot of ground to cover with reopening and coming up with plans. Thanks again, everybody, for hopping on today. We appreciate seeing and hearing from everybody, and we will chat soon. I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks.